The Force-sensitive Pauan male who would one day become the Grand Inquisitor hailed from the planet Utapau, where he was born 15 years prior to the invasion of Naboo. At some point he became a member of the Jedi Order and rose to the rank of Jedi Knight. He served in the Jedi Temple Guard, a group of Jedi tasked with defending the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. During his time as a Knight, he would develop a hatred for Chief Librarian Jocasta Nu, for when he would go to the archives to read data files, he would be watched closely by her, as she deemed him as unfit for education. During the Clone Wars, in a period of protest against the Jedi High Council for their continued leadership over the war between the Galactic Republic and the Confederacy of Independent Systems, a bombing at the temple rocked the Jedi Order. Although the true culprit was Padawan Barriss Offee, who believed that the Order had lost its way and were the villains in the war against the Confederacy, she framed her friend and fellow Padawan Ahsoka Tano for the crime. Despite fleeing into the Coruscant underworld, she was eventually captured and brought to the temple. She was brought before the Council, who stripped her of her Padawan status and expelled her from the Order. The future Grand Inquisitor was one of the guardsmen who led Tano from the temple, and she was ultimately brought to trial before Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. During the trial, Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker uncovered Offee's duplicity and had her arrested. The future Grand Inquisitor was one of the guards who escorted Offee into the trial, where she admitted her guilt in front of the Chancellor and was subsequently taken away by the guards. Tano was exonerated, but she refused to rejoin the Order and chose to seek a new path. The events with Offee and Tano left the future Grand Inquisitor feeling disaffected, and he lost faith in the Order. This left him susceptible to the pull of the dark side of the Force. However, the Pauan was still a Jedi by the time the Clone Wars ended, as he was a survivor of Order 66. At the end of the war, the Supreme Chancellor transformed the Republic into the Galactic Empire and declared himself Emperor of the Galaxy. During this time, the Emperor recruited him to become Grand Inquisitor of the Inquisitorius when he promised the Jedi Knight the chance to read through secrets of the Jedi archives. The Inquisitor came into the service of the Empire and the Sith, though he was not a Sith himself. When the Inquisitor entered the Jedi Temple's archives, he was confronted by the Sith Lord Darth Vader, who was once Anakin Skywalker before his own fall to the dark side. He and the cyborg then fought each other until the latter damaged his lightsaber. The fight was then stopped by the Emperor, who explained to Lord Vader who the Inquisitor and the Inquisitorius were. They then went to the Inquisitorius headquarters in the Works to meet with the other Inquisitors. Vader then tasked the Inquisitor with hunting down and eliminating any Jedi who had survived Order 66. To accomplish this task, the Inquisitor was trained in the ways of the dark side, and studied the records of the Jedi Temple in order to better know his enemies. Seeing how his new master employed brutal training methods that resulted in the loss of limbs from various of his Inquisitors, the Grand Inquisitor questioned Vader's methods, but the Sith Lord responded by saying that he was teaching loss to the Inquisitors and that they still fought like Jedi. After some arguing, the Grand Inquisitor reminded Vader that if the Inquisitors were to fail, said failure would be reflected on him as the Emperor appointed him to train them. As him and his master arrived at the former Jedi Temple, the Grand Inquisitor confides in Lord Vader about his hatred for the Jedi Master Jocasta Nu, as she denied him full access to the Jedi archives. Now, with a high-ranking position at the Empire, the Grand Inquisitor claimed that he would read through everything in the Jedi archives. Unbeknownst to the Inquisitor, however, Jocasta Nu had infiltrated the Jedi Temple in hopes of retrieving a holocron with a list of every Force-sensitive child cataloged prior to Order 66. While the Inquisitor was unaware of Nu's presence, as he was poring over the archives, the Jedi Master soon revealed herself to him, claiming that he had no right to read her books nor toss them aside. While being held at Blade Point, the Grand Inquisitor soon revealed to Nu that he was once a Jedi, who she denied access to her books, even when they were on the same side, though the Inquisitor soon whipped out his own lightsaber and started a duel with the Master. Showing his prowess in lightsaber combat, the Grand Inquisitor gained the upper hand during the duel and defeated Jocasta Nu by knocking her to the ground. But he was prevented from killing her by Darth Vader, who claimed that he did not wish for her to be executed, when in reality Vader was carrying the Emperor's orders of not to share information about Master Nu's importance. While the two argued, Nu took advantage of their distraction to hurl several hollow books at her opponents with the Force, which knocked the Grand Inquisitor, leaving him unconscious. Vader eventually continued the hunt for Jocasta and killed her. At one point during his service to the Empire, the Inquisitor embarked on a quest for answers that involved him tracking down a bearded human. As the man hid, the Inquisitor pursued him with his lightsaber ignited. One Jedi that the Inquisitor later led to their death was Jedi Master Luminara Unduli. After the execution of Order 66, Unduli was captured and held in the Spire, a former separatist-turned-imperial prison on the Stygian Prime. At her end, Unduli was in the presence of the Inquisitor, who stood in the doorway of her cell as she walked into the execution chamber and died. The Inquisitor kept her remains in the prison cell, using them to lure other Jedi to their deaths when they heard rumors that Unduli was still alive. A holographic recording of Unduli and her execution was kept by the Empire as a part of this ruse. Having risen to the rank of Grand Inquisitor, he led other members of the Inquisitorius. As the Grand Inquisitor, the Darkside Adept hunted down and dueled the former Jedi Padawan, Nock Med. His lightsaber was damaged in the duel, and Med escaped. At another point, the Grand Inquisitor took 4 sensitive children from an orphanage on Gaten. One night, when he went to the orphanage, he was confronted by a surviving Jedi, Kira Ventala, to which the Grand Inquisitor expressed his shock, believing her to be a weak Jedi. The Inquisitor was defeated by Ventala and a refugee named Alish, and never returned to the orphanage. 1 year after the rise of the Galactic Empire, the Grand Inquisitor was alerted of the presence of a Force sensitive being old enough to have received Jedi training on the farming moon of Retta. Though he wanted to hunt down the supposed Jedi himself, he was needed elsewhere, and the task instead went to the 6th brother, who then went to Retta to lay a trap for the Force sensitive. However, he was killed in the following battle, and the Jedi, as well as the farmers who had rebelled against the recent occupation, escaped. Meanwhile, the Grand Inquisitor was alerted to the situation and traveled to the moon with a fleet of Star Destroyers to provide backup, but by the time they had arrived, the insurgents were gone. The Grand Inquisitor personally examined the damage done by the battle and discovered the corpse of the 6th brother. Though annoyed by the incompetence and recklessness of his subordinate, the Grand Inquisitor was impressed by what the Jedi had done. He then went back to his ship and instructed his agents to set a course back to base and to inform Lord Vader that they had found evidence of another survivor, who was, in fact, Ahsoka Tano. The Grand Inquisitor was at a cantina with his fellow Inquisitors when Lord Vader arrived and attacked 2 of the Inquisitors that they had previously helped him during his hunt for Eth Koth. The Grand Inquisitor asked Vader if this sudden attack was a test or more training, to which the Sith Lord replied that it was not, before continuing his attacks on the 2 Inquisitors that ended up escaping from the headquarters. Lord Vader declined his offer for assistance and chased down the rogue Inquisitors by himself before killing both of them. Unfortunately, the Dark Lord's chase resulted in the death of a Grand Senator that was important to the Emperor's plans, resulting in the Inquisitorius being moved to Fortress Inquisitorius on Nur, as Sidious wanted to maintain the organization's clandestine nature. In 14 BBY, the Grand Inquisitor heard about a Jedi who caused problems for the Empire on Kashyyyk. This Jedi was Cal Kestis, who helped the partisans to attack an Imperial refinery. The 9th Sister told the Grand Inquisitor that Kestis would not be someone stupid enough to return to Kashyyyk, especially after the Resistance was eliminated by the Empire. The 9th Sister was later proved wrong and defeated by Kestis when he returned to Kashyyyk. In 9 BBY, the Grand Inquisitor traveled to Tatooine with the 5th brother and the 3rd sister. They soon landed on Mos Eisley, and the 3 Inquisitors began to seek out a Jedi they were hunting. The Grand Inquisitor and his fellow Inquisitorius walked into a saloon and asked the establishment's owner if he knew who they were and what they did. He went on to inform the saloon's owner that the Inquisitorius had heard rumors about a Jedi hiding in the saloon. Just as the Grand Inquisitor began to conclude his speech, the 3rd sister got tired of waiting and threw a patron's knife toward the saloon's owner. This made Nari, the Jedi they were seeking out, save him from the Force. Discovered, Nari tried to run away, but the 3rd sister and the 5th brother cornered him. As the Grand Inquisitor ordered the Inquisitorius to prepare Nari for interrogation, the 3rd sister tried to cut the Jedi down, leading the Inquisitor to stop and knock the sister aside with the Force, enabling him to escape. As the 5th brother pursued Nari, the Grand Inquisitor reprimanded the 3rd sister for her carelessness, warning her that if she did not quit her fixation with finding Obi-Wan Kenobi, she would be relieved of her duties. After the third sister hired Vect Nokru and his mercenaries to kidnap the Alderaanian princess Leia Organa and bring her to Daiyu in hopes that Obi-Wan Kenobi would be contacted by Leia's adoptive father, Bail Organa, to rescue her, the Grand Inquisitor went to Daiyu, accompanied by the fifth brother and the fourth sister so that they could capture Kenobi. They met up with the third sister, and the Inquisitor chastised her for kidnapping a senator's daughter and for not informing him. Feeling that the third sister wanted to capture Kenobi to gain favor within the Inquisitorious ranks, the Grand Inquisitor reminded her how they rescued her from the gutter, and that she would always be the least of them. As they secured the city, the Grand Inquisitor requested the fifth brother to shut down the planet's port and request a garrison within an hour. The fourth sister then came to him and showed him a bounty hunter alert advertising a bounty placed on Kenobi's head, leading the Grand Inquisitor to deduce that the third sister had once again acted behind his back. Soon afterward, two stormtroopers brought Nokru to his presence, and the Grand Inquisitor threatened Nokru into telling him where Kenobi was, knowing that he had put the bounty on the third sister's behalf. However, Nokru knew nothing, leading the Inquisitor to kill him for his uselessness. Not long after, the Grand Inquisitor intercepted the third sister as she taunted Kenobi. The Inquisitor stated that he would not tolerate the reek of her ambition any longer and ordered her to move aside, not wanting to lose Kenobi again. He then instructed her to watch and learn, but the third sister instead used her lightsaber to stab the Grand Inquisitor, mockingly asking him if he thought that she would let him take all the credit, before letting him drop to the ground. Following the purported death of Powin, the third sister communicated with Vader via hologram. He went on to promise her the position of Grand Inquisitor to the third sister, should she prove herself. Due to her success in placing a tracker to uncover the location of the Path Network and Kenobi, the third sister was granted the title of Grand Inquisitor. However, due to his desire for revenge, the Powin was able to survive his wound and recover from Reva's attack. After the third sister betrayed Vader during their mission on Jabin, she was struck down by her former master. As she lay weakened on the ground, the Grand Inquisitor reappeared and revealed his survival to Reva. He took the pin signifying the rank of Grand Inquisitor from her, reclaiming his rank, before he and Vader left Reva to die. The Grand Inquisitor and Vader returned to the latter's flagship as it pursued Roken's freighter. In the midst of their pursuit, the Imperials noticed a single drop ship exit the freighter and detected one life form aboard. Vader immediately realized that it was Kenobi, but the Grand Inquisitor counseled his master that they continue their pursuit of Roken's ship, opting that they should not prioritize one Jedi. However, Vader countered that Kenobi was no ordinary Jedi, then ordered the Devastator to pursue Kenobi's ship. In the years prior to the Battle of Yavin, the Grand Inquisitor was contacted by Lord Vader, who instructed the Jedi Hunter to eliminate the Children of the Force that the Emperor had foreseen rising to challenge his rule, and either make them serve the Empire or destroy them, along with any survivors who could train them. One method that the Inquisitor used to find Force-sensitive individuals was to look for cadets at the Academy for Young Imperials on Lothal, who met a set of criteria, one that indicated their ability to use the Force, an operation known as Project Harvester. One known target of Project Harvester was Dara Leonis, a promising cadet and the daughter of Imperial agricultural scientists. The Imperial authorities attempted to cover up her kidnapping by claiming that she had run away from the Academy. However, her mother and younger brother suspected that the Empire was lying. To ascertain his sister's fate, Zare enrolled at the Academy the following year. Sometime later, 14 years after the rise of the Empire, a group of rebels who operated on Lothal came to the attention of Agent Alexander Callis of the Imperial Secretary Bureau. The rebels rescued a group of enslaved Wookiees on Kessel, during which the rebel leader, Kanan Jarrus, revealed himself as a Jedi survivor. After the rebels escaped, Callis contacted the Inquisitor and informed him about what happened on Kessel. The Grand Inquisitor laid a trap for Jarrus and his Padawan, Ezra Bridger, in the Spire. The Empire was able to project an image suggesting that Luminara Unduli was alive, and this information was then reported by Gal Travis, a former member of the Imperial Senate who claimed to have gone into exile after speaking out against the Empire. In reality, Travis was a loyal agent of the Empire, one who used his position to lure rebel groups into traps around the galaxy. Not wanting to pass up an opportunity to rescue a Jedi survivor, the rebels undertook a mission to the Spire, where they intended to rescue the Jedi Master. Once in the prison, Jairus and Bridger made it to the detention area, and Jairus believed he could sense the Master, though in actuality, it was the power from her bones. They entered the cell and saw a projected image of Unduli, which faded into a sarcophagus that revealed the remains of the Jedi Master. The Grand Inquisitor entered the cell, his lightsaber ignited, and approached the two Jedi, revealing that Luminara had been dead for many years. Jairus attacked the Inquisitor, and the two engaged in lightsaber combat. The two continued their duel within the cell until Bridger set off a small detonator that allowed him and Jairus to flee. Though they had escaped the cell, the Grand Inquisitor pursued them and continued his fight with Jairus in the halls of the prison. He soon pushed Jairus away through the Force and, per Vader's command, attempted to convert Bridger to the dark side. The boy refused, however, and the Inquisitor prepared to strike him down, but Jairus used the Force to pin the Inquisitor to the ceiling, giving the two Jedi a chance to flee. The Grand Inquisitor followed them and chased them through the prison before they met back up with their fellow rebels. Separated by a number of closed doors, the Inquisitor sliced through them with his lightsaber and arrived in time to see the rebels beginning to escape. After his failure to stop the rebels on Stygian Prime, the Inquisitor was contacted by Commandant Oresco, the lead officer at the Imperial Academy of Lothal, who informed him of two students who potentially met his criteria for Force sensitivity. He learned that these cadets were Dev Morgan, who, unknown to the Academy, was Bridger in disguise, who infiltrated the Academy to learn the location of a giant kyber crystal of great power, and Jai Kel. Having learned this information, the Inquisitor told Oresco that he would arrive at the Imperial Academy the next day. Bridger overheard the conversation, and he and Kel escaped the Academy with another cadet, Zer Leonis, who suspected that the Inquisitor was behind the disappearance of his sister Dara, who was the star cadet at the Academy before her disappearance. Upon his arrival at the Imperial Academy, Oresco and Agent Callus informed him of Bridger and Kel's escape. The Jedi Hunter was shown the data files on the two cadets and recognized Dev Morgan as Bridger from their encounter on Stygian Prime. The Inquisitor informed Oresco that the incident was a black mark on the Academy's record, though he did have hope of learning more about the rebels, as Leonis was also present in the meeting. During the escape, Leonis had opted to stay behind so that he could find out what had happened to his sister and pretended to try to stop Bridger and Kel upon their escape. The Inquisitor spoke to Leonis and told the cadet to tell him everything he knew about Bridger and Kel. During his private chat with Leonis, the Inquisitor led the young cadet to an interrogation room. Once inside, the Inquisitor asked Leonis everything he knew about Morgan while trying to probe the cadet's thoughts. While hiding his collaboration with Morgan, Leonis pretended to support the Inquisitor's assessment that something was not right about him. When the Inquisitor told Leonis that Morgan was a pseudonym, Zer pretended to be a perfect cadet and asked whether the victories in his assessments would be vacated. The Inquisitor merely replied that he should ask Commandant Oresco. Zer then attempted to convince the Inquisitor that he was Force-sensitive like his missing sister Dara. He claimed that he could somehow sense that there was something wrong with Dev and Jai and that they were hiding something. The Inquisitor quickly deduced that Leonis was Dara's younger brother. While the Inquisitor was fully aware that Dara had been abducted and forcibly inducted into the Project Harvester, he repeated the official Imperial account that Dara had merely run away. When Zer claimed that he and his sister could always sense each other's presence, the Inquisitor merely told the young cadet that it made sense and that in time he would understand why. The Inquisitor and his Imperial forces arrived in a village on the planet Vindal in search of Jairus after he had been seen close by. The Inquisitor and his forces were greeted by the protector of the village, Yeleb, who lied to the Inquisitor that he had not seen Jairus in their village. However, the Inquisitor could see through the protector's lies, and when Yeleb ordered the Imperials to leave, the Pau'an ordered his stormtroopers to destroy the village. Jairus revealed himself to the Inquisitor and attacked him. Yeleb would soon join the combat as well, wielding his own green-bladed lightsaber, leading the Inquisitor to assume that Yeleb was a Jedi too, although, in actual fact, a few years ago earlier Yeleb had taken the lightsaber from a crashed starfighter with a dead Jedi inside. Using the Force, the Inquisitor pushed Jairus out of the combat, allowing him to focus on Yeleb and slash the man across the chest with his blade. The Inquisitor took Yeleb's lightsaber, and Jairus fled from the Inquisitor to draw him away from the wounded human. The Imperials gave chase, and Jairus was able to trick them into thinking he had fled Vindal on one of their cruisers, causing them to chase after it and leave the planet in the other. The Inquisitor was on Lothal for Empire Day when the rebels destroyed the prototype TIE Advanced V1. When the rebels attempted to smuggle Sibo, an Imperial Information Office worker who had fled with Imperial secrets, off Lothal, he led a TIE fighter squadron to stop them from escaping. He was able to plant a tracker on their ship moments before they jumped to hyperspace. Realizing they were being tracked, Jarrus and Bridger boarded the Phantom and ejected from the Ghost, flying it to Fort Anaxes. The Inquisitor took a squad of troops and its commander with him to confront the two Jedi. As the Inquisitor and his troopers entered the base, they spotted Jarrus and Bridger along with a multitude of Fryonoks. The two Jedi used the Force to command the Fryonoks to attack the stormtroopers. Jarrus fought the Inquisitor once more. After being cornered by the Inquisitor, Bridger briefly succumbed to the dark side and summoned a giant Frynok to attack him. Jarrus reawakened, grabbing Bridger and reclaiming his lightsaber. After driving off the Mother Frynok, the Inquisitor attempted to halt their escape, but they managed to board their ship and destroy the Imperial landing craft. Following the Lothal rebels' attack on the Imperial Day celebrations, the Grand Inquisitor returned to Lothal to deal with another unfinished business, Zare Leonis. While Zare was a promising cadet at the Academy for Young Imperials who had earned the glowing praise of his instructors, the Inquisitor suspected that Leonis was connected to Ezra Bridger and the other Lothal rebels. A perfect opportunity to make his move against Zare surfaced when the young cadet took action against a fellow cadet who had attempted to shield his smuggler uncles from Imperial justice. Under the pretext of rewarding Leonis, the Inquisitor arranged for the cadet to be transferred to Arcanus Academy, which was connected to Project Harvester. There he hoped to create the circumstances that he would expose Leonis as a traitor to the Empire. In addition, the Inquisitor wanted to ascertain whether Zare was actually Force-sensitive as he had claimed earlier. Following Leonis' raid on a group of smugglers, the Inquisitor and Captain Radens summoned Zare for a private meeting. When Leonis suggested that Oleg was genuinely unaware that his uncles were involved in smuggling and suggested showing the delinquent some compassion, the Inquisitor replied that compassion was the most insidious business. After ordering Captain Radens to leave the room, the Inquisitor told Leonis that he had arranged for the cadet to be transferred to the Arcanus Academy as a reward for his loyalty to the Empire. Throughout the meeting, the Inquisitor made every effort to probe Leonis' thoughts. Pretending to be a model cadet, Leonis expressed gratitude at the opportunity to serve the Empire. Sensing Leonis' true motivations for joining the Imperial Academy, the Inquisitor patronized Leonis by asking who could doubt the commitment of such a promising young cadet. Prior to Leonis' departure, the Inquisitor told the cadet that he looked forward to his training on Arcanus, and assured the cadet that his service to the Empire would be more important than he had hoped for. While Leonis was uncertain whether the Inquisitor knew his true agenda, his girlfriend, Mary Spanjaf, uncovered Imperial documents which confirmed that the Inquisitor had intended to use the Arcanus transfer to break the young cadet. Later, the Inquisitor visited the Arcanus Academy and landed at Area Null, a secluded tower in the Academy that hosted several top-secret Imperial projects, including Project Harvester and Project Unity, the latter a program for re-educating former dissident youths. After dining with Commandant Brendel Hux and the cadets in the Academy's banquet hall, the Inquisitor summoned Cadet Leonis for a private meeting at the Commandant's balcony. There, the Inquisitor asked Leonis why he had tried to enter Area Null, even though it was off-limits to cadets. Leonis claimed that he thought that a fellow cadet was in trouble, but the Inquisitor quickly realized that he was lying. He then gave Leonis a second chance to answer the question. Leonis claimed that he had sensed that there was something in the tower that he was meant to find. The Inquisitor then asked if Morgan had told him about the tower on Lothal, or something called Project Harvester. In response, Leonis feigned ignorance, but the Inquisitor could see that he was trying to hide something. Before the Inquisitor could carry on with the interrogation, the Commandant's droid arrived and informed him that he had received a priority encrypted message from Lothal. Before leaving, the Inquisitor warned Leonis that he would soon have Morgan and his companions. He also vowed to get to the truth behind Leonis' connection to Morgan. Unknown to the Inquisitor and Leonis, this was to be their last meeting due to unexpected developments. To continue tracking the rebels, at some point the Grand Inquisitor sought information from Vice Admiral Ray Sloan of the Imperial Navy. Sloan once had a run-in with Jarrus on the planet Gorse, where Jarrus first met Captain Hera Syndulla and joined her rebel cause. The Grand Inquisitor found the officer on Lan, where she had set a trap for the Jedi. Jairus escaped, but Sloane remained on Lon when she was confronted by the Inquisitor, who wanted to know everything she knew about Jairus. The Inquisitor was present when Governor Tarkin arrived to investigate the situation on Lothal. Reports of the rebel activities had reached the highest levels of the Imperial government, and worries had begun to emerge as Lothal's industries were vital for the Empire's expansion into the Outer Rim. Immediately upon arriving, Governor Tarkin berated Minister Tua and Agent Kallus for their inability to stop the rebellion. He also dismissed the rumors that a Jedi was leading the rebels, claiming that all the Jedi had died during the Purge. Later that day, Governor Tarkin summoned Commandant Oresco and Taskmaster Grint, who had been pursuing the rebels for some time and who had failed at every turn. Upon informing the assembled dignitaries that there would be consequences for failure henceforth, the Inquisitor activated his lightsaber and decapitated the two officers as a horrified Tua and Kallus watched on. When Kallus discovered that the rebels were planning to strike at the Imperial Communications Tower, Tarkin instructed him to let them enter the tower and prepare his troops to intervene as soon as they did. After the agent left, the governor told the Grand Inquisitor that this was his chance to redeem himself for his previous failures. After the rebels struck the tower, Kallus and his troops intervened, surrounding the tower and forcing the rebels to escape to the roof. Only Kanan Jarrus remained behind to give them time to escape, at which point the Inquisitor arrived to confront the Jedi. Once again, the Inquisitor and the Jedi fought, with the former noticing that Jarrus had improved his technique. However, the Inquisitor proved the stronger of the two once again, and he subdued Jarrus with the Force. With Jarrus in custody, Governor Tarkin arrived and was given the captured Jedi just as a signal broadcast by the rebels began to be transmitted by the tower. The governor gave orders for the tower to be destroyed before leaving with his prisoner. After Jarrus was captured, he was brought aboard Governor Tarkin's flagship in orbit above Lothal. Tarkin and Kallus proceeded to interrogate Jarrus with a mind probe, but the Jedi proved stronger than this tactic. The Inquisitor arrived and told them that the Jedi were trained to resist mind probes. Instead, he claimed that pain would be a more effective technique. The Inquisitor used the Force to try and pry the information from Jarrus' mind, but once again, the Jedi resisted. Instead, the Inquisitor electrocuted Jarrus to make him talk. However, the rebel proved to be far stronger than he believed, and he resisted the torture. The Inquisitor came to believe that Jarrus did not know anything of a larger rebellion. Tarkin eventually suggested transferring him to a facility that had never failed to gain results. The Sovereign then departed Lothal from Mustafar, a world deep in the Outer Rim. Over Mustafar, the Inquisitor continued his interrogation of Jarrus, asking him about other rebels he may have known. Specifically, he wanted to know about a mysterious rebel known as Fulcrum. Jarrus still refused to talk, so the Inquisitor changed tactics. He asked Jarrus how he had survived Order 66. When Jarrus failed to answer, the Inquisitor revealed that he knew how. Jarrus' master, Depa Billaba, had sacrificed herself to save him, losing her own life in the process. The Inquisitor taunted Jarrus, telling him that he could not save his friends any more than he could save his master. When alarms went off, the Inquisitor was unsurprised to find that the other rebels had come to rescue their friend. After Bridger broke Jarrus out of his cell, they headed back for their evacuation ship, through the generator complex where the Inquisitor waited for them. Jarrus borrowed Bridger's lightsaber and attacked the Inquisitor. The two engaged in a lightsaber duel, with Jarrus using both the blade and the stun gun to attack the Inquisitor. When Bridger used the Force to snatch Jarrus' lightsaber from the Imperial agent's belt, the Inquisitor disengaged from the duel with Jarrus and, activating his second blade, claimed that he would finally get the challenge that he had always wanted. After a brief engagement, he used the Force to push Jarrus back before throwing his spinning lightsaber at Bridger, who fell from the pathway. Distraught at the apparent loss of his Padawan, Jarrus eventually pulled himself together, remembering his Jedi training, and rose to his feet. When the Inquisitor asked him what would happen now that he had no one else to die for him, Jarrus replied that he no longer had anything left to fear. He then used the Force to draw his lightsaber to him, using both it and Ezra's to resume their duel. This time, however, Jarrus proved a much more effective foe, and he gradually started to drive the Inquisitor back, the latter of whom began to show fear and uncertainty for the first time. When the Inquisitor came perilously close to the edge, Jarrus interrupted the duel to say that his foe was right. He was a coward, but that he had discovered that there was something far more powerful than fear: the Force. The Inquisitor made his blades spin to defend him, but Jairus destroyed the Inquisitor's lightsaber, and the Imperial agent fell off the edge, catching the side of the pathway in his fall. The two halves of the lightsaber hit the generator, causing it to catch fire and starting a chain reaction within the Sovereign. As Jairus stood over his defeated foe, the Inquisitor looked up at him and told him that his defeat would unleash something far worse upon them all. Knowing the punishment he would receive from his master for his failures, the Inquisitor told the Jedi that there were some things far more frightening than death, before letting himself fall into the exploding generator, killing himself. The Inquisitor's warning to Jairus proved true. With their primary agent on Lothal dead, and a growing rebellion in the galaxy, the Empire sent out a far deadlier agent to Lothal to root out and destroy the rebels, Darth Vader. Sometime after the death of the Grand Inquisitor, Jairus and Bridger traveled with Ahsoka Tano to the Jedi Temple on Lothal to seek the guidance of Jedi Master Yoda, with whom Jairus and Bridger had communed with from there before. It was there that they hoped to find guidance for how to deal with the threat of the new Inquisitors, who attacked the rebels at every turn. While in the temple, Jairus entered a vision in which he saw a Jedi Temple guard known as the Sentinel within a dojo. Unknown to Jairus, this was a vision conjured by Yoda of the Grand Inquisitor, as the Jedi he once was. The Sentinel warned Jairus that Bridger would fall to the dark side of the Force, and that the boy had to be eliminated. Jairus refused, and the two engaged in a lightsaber duel. By the end of the duel, Jairus refused to fight any further, and admitted that while he may not be able to protect Bridger forever, he would continue to do his best to train him. The Sentinel looked as if he was about to strike Jairus down, but instead performed the knighting ritual. Then he removed his mask to reveal the face of the Grand Inquisitor. As the seventh sister and the fifth brother descended on the temple, the Sentinel told Jairus to flee and said that he would hold off the enemy. The vision of the Sentinel, flanked by other Jedi Temple guards, surrounded the two Inquisitors as Jairus, Bridger, and Tano fled from the Jedi Temple. In 0 BBY, shortly after Jairus' own death, his confrontation with the Grand Inquisitor was heard among numerous voices by Bridger as he passed through a hyper-tunnel while riding a Loth Wolf on his mission to the Lothal Jedi Temple. The Grand Inquisitor's helmet fell into the hands of Maz Kanata after she hired smugglers Han Solo and Chewbacca to recover it. Despite his defeat above Mustafar, the Pauwan's usefulness to the Sith had not run dry. Through the intervention of Vader, the Grand Inquisitor was prevented from passing on from the mortal world. Vader forced the Inquisitor's spirit to serve his purposes, installing his servant into an ancient Jedi temple on Tempes, hoping that anyone seeking knowledge from the place would be caught in his trap. The Inquisitor's spirit, still burning from the flames his body had been destroyed in aboard the Sovereign, haunted the structure for years, killing any seekers of knowledge who had stepped foot into the halls. At some point, Padawan Verla discovered the outpost, but abandoned the place after sensing the dark presence of the Inquisitor that resided within. After losing his lightsaber in a duel with Vader on Cloud City in 3 ABY, Luke Skywalker learned of the Tempes outpost from Verla and traveled there, hoping to retrieve a new weapon. Inside, the Inquisitor's spirit confronted the boy and taunted him for his lack of training. Armed with the lightsaber of a Jedi Temple guard, Skywalker battled the spirit. The ghostly Inquisitor gained the upper hand in the duel, knocking the would-be Jedi to the ground and mocking him for his devotion to the Jedi Order. However, the sight of the ancient relics in the outpost, still standing after centuries, motivated Skywalker to push back. With his new weapon, he sliced off the spirit's hand and delivered a slash to the chest, causing the Inquisitor to disappear. In another part of the galaxy, Vader sensed the skirmish on Tempes and ordered the crew of his shuttle to bring him there. However, by the time he arrived, Skywalker had escaped. The Dark Lord berated the Inquisitor, whose ghostly figure had since reformed itself. The Pauwan pleaded with his master, begging to be set free from the curse, but Vader was not satisfied with his pawn's work and refused. The Inquisitor looked on as the Sith Lord departed from the place that he could not, repeating to himself that there were things worse than death before fading into darkness. During his attempt to restore the Jedi Order, Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, along with his nephew and apprentice Ben Solo, and the explorer Lor Santeca, went on a mission to the planet Elphrona where they found a Jedi outpost filled with Jedi artifacts. Skywalker mentioned to Solo about how the last time he had found a lightsaber in a similar outpost, it had been a trap and it almost killed him. Let me know what your thoughts of the Grand Inquisitor are in the comments below. Remember to like the video and subscribe for more character spotlights like this, as well as up-to-date news stories, in-depth reviews, gaming videos, and more. As always, thank you all for watching, and remember, The Force will be with you, always.